Madeleine, Anatomy of a Nightmare features Camille Keaton as an American living abroad in Italy with her older husband. She is traumatized by a miscarriage she is suffered and is plagued by intense nightmares that seem to be related to the event. As expected, some psychological unraveling follows. This little sin psychological horror flick is really more of a chamber drama featuring various hallucinatory images that range from triad to genuinely creepy. These visuals manifest in dream sequences experienced by Keaton's character as she is romancing two different men. Aside from her husband, who seems oddly unbothered by her affairs, and sometimes in brief intercut that occur while her character is awake. In the later instances, there is little context and the sequences appear to be random more than symbolic. It is this precise disjointedness that characterizes Madeleine, though it's not a complete failure. The film does manage to be engrossing even while the narrative feels oblique and arbitrary, and this is largely because the cinematography and visuals are more or less effective, and the film also functions as a time capsule of gaudy 70s European style. Keaton's performance is overwritten by bad dubbing, and as is the case with most Italian horror fodder of this period, the dialogue feels disingenuous, sometimes absurd, and at times laughable. Despite its shortcoming, the film does have a clever ending that is borderline Hitchcockian, and I was caught off guard by it. Even still, Madeleine, Anatomy of a Nightmare does not quite work as well as it should. The meandering narrative, punctuated by a number of LSD-esque visuals, leaves the viewer wanting something a bit more, as none of the themes really coalesce. The conclusion, to some degree, acts as a cop-out to fill in the gaps that precede it. That being said, it is worth watching for fans of Camille Keaton as well as anyone with a curiosity or interest in 1970s Italian psychological horror. It is certainly strange. Madeleine, a young American woman, is spending the summer at a vacation home outside Rome with her French husband Dr. Franz Schumann. Madeleine, whose biggest wish is to bear a child, has recently suffered a traumatic miscarriage and is plagued by a bizarre recurring dreams pertaining to the death of her unborn child. In the dream, Madeleine is chased through the wood by numerous versions of herself bearing colorful hair. They pursue her until they stumble upon the scene of her wrecked car with her burned body next to it, and the women proceed to throw a child's casket containing a baby doll onto the flames. While in the city, Madeleine meets Thomas, a young, attractive university student whom she offers a ride. Madeleine returns home with Thomas and awkwardly introduces him to France. She later explained to Thomas France has a penchant for studying psychology and the occult in his spare time. Madeleine and Thomas have love in the house, as Franz, unbeknownst to them, spies from another room. Franz subsequently informed Thomas that Madeleine is prone to schizophrenic episode. Later, Madeleine and Thomas go on a boating excursion, during which Madeleine confesses that she is sometimes overtaken by a presence. She also divulges her bizarre dream to Thomas, but he dismisses it as an irrelevant nightmare. Later, Madeleine meets Antonio, a fellow American and musician with whom she also begins a romantic dalliance. Thomas later tells Madeleine he cannot see her anymore as he has a girlfriend. Madeleine responds to this news with little upset and invites Thomas to attend a large party France is holding to celebrate the arrival of his son Louis from the United States. During the party, Thomas' girlfriend Mary gets drunk and Madeleine attempts to seduce her, but is stopped by Franz. Franz begins to attempt to have love with Mary, which causes an outburst when Thomas bears witness to this. After the two men get into a fight, Thomas wanders outside and drowns himself in the swimming pool. After Thomas' suicide, Madeleine leaves France and meets with Antonio, to whom she professes her love. As the two kiss on the beach, Franz arrives, interrupting the lovers' rendezvous. Franz humiliates Madeleine by revealing all of her affair to Antonio, who then rejects her. Franz proceeds to brandish a gun, apparently shooting Madeleine. However, this is proved to be more ruse. Later, Louis, Thomas, and Franz observe Madeleine in a hospital. It is revealed that Louis is in fact Madeleine's husband, while Franz and Thomas are psychiatrists who have been studying her as a test case in an attempt to understand her shattered psyche. Mary is a nurse who works with the psychiatrist. Madeleine awakens and appears to finally have a state of mental clarity, suggesting that the elaborate clandestine therapy plot was successful. However, when Louis departs with Madeleine, she demands to be reunited with Franz, whom she now believed to be her husband. This movie starts with a young woman having a strange nightmare where she is chased through the wood by strange people in psychedelic colored fright wigs. Back in the real world, she picks up a hitchhiking male student and takes him back to her village for some nude swimming and hot love, while an older relative or lover, played Sylvan Tranquino, spies on them. They go for a ride on her speedboat, and there is a flashback to a former lover who was apparently killed in an auto racing accident. There is some more hot love on the boat and a slow motion, body bouncing, nude, horseback riding scene before the couple hit a trendy discotheque. Then it's back to the village for a swinging party where the seemingly dead former lover shows up with another woman. The movie only gets exponentially weirder from there, finally culminating in an ending that is kind of like the Wizard of Oz on really bad acid. It's hard to classify this movie. At first, it seems like a gothic horror, but it lacks a lot of clearly supernatural element. The excellent visuals and music suggest a giallo, but it really lacks the mystery thriller element of that genre. It could be considered a love film. The gorgeous Keaton is often clad scantily or not at all, and the incredibly hot future star Paola Senatore does a wild striptease. But the actual romance is pretty tame, and a potential female scene between Keaton and Senatore is tragically aborted. This movie doesn't make a lot of sense, frankly, and there are long stretches where nothing is happening. The ending doesn't entirely work either. Still, it has very good visuals and music, and it kept my interest simply because it is so unpredictably bizarre. Far from being a bad actress, Camille Keaton is a mesmerizing presence. She was not only a stunning beauty, but she has an amazing face that is alternately ethereally innocent and seductively sinister. She is best known in America, unfortunately, for the notorious grindhouse classic I Spit on Your Grave. But check her out also in What Have You Done to Solange and Tragic Ceremony. Silvano Tranquillo was a very underrated Italian character actor who appeared excellent jolly like the blood-stained butterfly and smiled before death. Madeleine is a woman torn between a waking life and a prophetic dream one. She has nightmares about being chased through woods by strange witchy characters. She dreams of her baby doll in a glass coffin, immolated on a burning wreck of a race car. She also envisioned a terrible accident, a race interrupted by one of the cars spinning out of control and slamming into a wall, catching fire. This last seems to relate to Louis, the son of her occult obsessed husband Franz Schumann, or does it? Madeleine's waking hours are haunted by her inability to carry a child. She lost one before, though the specifics are left unspoken. She is married, but her husband does not seem erotically interested in her, which is fine because she is perfectly capable of finding handsome men to seduce. First, there is Thomas, who ultimately chooses to leave her for a relationship with Mary. But others are quick to fall into Madeleine's gravitational pull. Is Madeleine a nymphomaniac? Is she psychologically damaged in another way? Or is she caught in the realm of some great supernatural mystery? Writer-director Roberto Mauri helms a sly, earthy examination of a character in crisis with Madeleine, Anatomy of a Nightmare. Before she became a sensation in the grotty horror film I Spit on Your Grave, Camille Keaton appeared in quite a few Italian films. Inspired by Clint Eastwood's success, she left the state on a trip to the continent, hoping to jumpstart her acting career there. She made quite a string of interesting features, starring as the titular character in the classic giallo What Have You Done to Solange, as well as a half-dozen other films. 3 of these have been collected into the recent Vinegar Syndrome limited edition Blu-ray box set. Camille Keaton in Italy, and the first of the picture in that box is Keaton's last Italian flick from the 1970s, Madeleine, Anatomy of a Nightmare. That subtitle is nicely chosen since it encapsulates quite a few thematic elements from the flick. This is a nightmarish piece in which a husband who is practicing occult activity can seemingly appear and disappear at will or hypnotize anyone who gazes into his eyes for long enough. It is a world that constantly shifts between body, strange, erotically charged, and unsettling tones. It is a film where people are not certain of themselves and we are never sure of their motivation. Also, the anatomy part is accurate, since it is a film that is nigh obsessed with bodies and body part. Camille Keaton's Madeleine only ever appears in cut-off jeans or skirt that show off her leg. There is nudity aplenty, some tasteful and some sketchy, as well as plenty of love charged scenes about the ways people touch one another. Into this world, France is all the more sinister since he seldom saw physical contact of a positive nature with anyone and instead uses his uncanny hypnotic eyes to manipulate the flesh, and the way it can connect between people almost to obsessive levels is one of the topic both the film Madeleine and its titular character grapple with. Keaton herself delivers a strong performance here as a woman in trouble. She's got the leading lady look, of course, and the camera certainly enjoy observing and capturing them. However, she also has a sense of how to move her body, how to show emotion through casual gesture and expression, and how to invest her dialogue with the requisite passion. This is a character that balances being in the moment with a kind of aloofness, a tricky line to play. As well, Madeleine has agency and yet is pulled by forces she cannot completely understand or control, which is also difficult to convey. However, Keaton does a fine job. We may not know the answer to these woman's mysteries until the revelation in the final minute, but we never fail to be intrigued. Director Roberto Mauri was approaching the end of his career when he wrote and directed Madeleine, and there is an appreciable level of control to the direction. This is an Italian genre film from the 1970s, so one expects some odd turns and some unusual choices in terms of the way the storytelling progresses alla Lenzi, Fulci, Argento or Bava. There are some intriguing moments, but we never go completely into the realm of lunacy. We never once feel like we are in the hand of a madam for a director. Instead, for its symbolic and strange opening dream sequence through its order turn. The film nevertheless appealed to cold, rational logic in the spirit of classic giallos, such as Bava's Evil Eye. Cinematographer Carlo Carlini has a talent for photography that seethes with emotion, eeriness, and sensuality. There are several subtle but ambitious shots throughout the film. One of the more memorable sequences involves a long shot at an evening party, which first track along, following Alfonso Sarlo's butler character as he proceeds around the massive swimming pool, dropping off drink at several tables, passing through their conversation like a shadow before the waiter moves off and the camera settles on Madeleine chatting with another woman. Without a break, the camera pans when she walks off to the side and then watches her walk along another stretch of the pool before finally zooming slowly in on her final destination. Only then do we cut. It might not be as long as the short composing rope, nor as complex as the length it takes in Touch of Evil or Goodfellas, but it has a surprising number of moving parts over the course of the sequence. The end result does not call a lot of attention to itself, but it's a perfectly executed moment that easily draws us from conversation to conversation, and then from character to character. Some viewers will be repulsed by a couple of the character, for all his one need as a loving husband. The Franz character veers off into some pretty despicable places, including assaulting a drugged woman. Likewise, there are some assumptions about masculine bravado and machismo that are relic of a bygone era, which might not sit well with the contemporary viewer. However, weathering these rougher patches will allow viewers the opportunity to recontextualize them once the finale is reached. Madeleine, Anatomy of a Nightmare is a groovy psychological shocker. Not quite horror, it's more of a dark fantasy that tackles some intriguing topic, introduces some odd character, and then reveals their sleazier side, and yet manages to tell an intriguing story about a woman who dreads as much as she loves, who is at the mercy of forces she cannot control and does not understand, and who flirt with self-destruction the same way she does handsome men.